If you want some FIFA 23 coins, please check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use code Rema, you can get yourself a 5% discount.
So what's going on, guys? My name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. I'm still not feeling the best, but I am getting a little bit better. But anyway, in today's video, guys, I've got some 4-4-2 custom tactics and player instructions that I've updated recently. And yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy. But just before we get into the video, I would appreciate it if you guys could drop this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with custom tactics, on the defensive style I like to use balance. This is pretty much the same for every formation I use. The reason for this is I've gone over it a million times now, but basically you can press when you want to press and you can drop back when you want to drop back. It gives you more control over your defending, which I think is very important. A lot of people do like using pressure tactics, but I'm just not a fan. Like, you can use them if you want to, but I suggest balanced, as I think you do get a greater control of your defense. Moving on to defensive width, I've upped this to 43. The reason for this is because people have started to play a little bit wider on FIFA now. It's mainly due to how explosive and control players are, and people do go down the wings a little bit more. So I've only bumped this up a little bit just to get a bit better coverage on the wings, because people still play like primarily narrow, but it's just to, you know, really cover those wings for when people do go down there. But yeah, moving on to depth, I have this on 48. The reason for this is it's important to lower it now, because over the top through balls and through balls as a whole are very strong in FIFA 23. If you guys didn't know, through balls are overly assisted to the point where they actively try to avoid your defenders. Like, that's not me making that up, it was in the patch notes. So that's how strong the through balls are. It's important that you have a lower depth to deal with them, because it's pretty much the only way to do so. Now, moving on to the offensive tactics for build-up play, I do suggest balance, guys. The reason for this is if you use something like fast build-up, although it sounds great in principle, sometimes it can be too quick for your own good, if that makes sense, especially in these flatter formations. Sometimes your players get pulled out of the formation a bit too much. So I suggest using balance as you keep a better shape, a more natural shape, and it does suit the 4-4-2. And sometimes as well, when you are using fast build-up, the gameplay can be extremely heavy. So although all these options are moving around very quickly, you just do not have the speed required to be able to, you know, utilize the options. So balance is best for most types of gameplay, guys. Now, for chance creation, especially if you're on the new gen, I suggest direct passing, because if you look at the diagram in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, you can see it's the one which gives you the best movement. If you look at the white dots which represent your attackers, you can see they move around in a dynamic motion to create chances and penetrate the defensive line. This doesn't happen with something like balance. As you can see, they're very static, which is why we do use direct passing. If you are on the old gen version of the game, you can just use something like balance and it doesn't matter too much. Okay guys, for attacking width, I've actually upped this to about 51. The reason for this is the 4-4-2 is obviously a wider formation, so we do want to utilize the wings a bit more than we do in other formations. Now, when I first started using this formation, I did have it a bit more narrow, but I've noticed it actually plays out better when you have a higher width, and that only makes sense because it is a wider formation. So by upping the width to about 51, I just have it 1/50 because I think it does make a difference. By upping the width, you do utilize the strengths of this formation a little bit more, and you'll notice you have a bit more space in it. But yeah, it's down to preference. If you want to keep it a bit more narrow, that's up to you. If you want to make it even wider, again, go ahead. I've gone for 51 because I feel like just having it over the middle ground means it'll be a bit more wider. I know, sounds stupid, but it just seems to make a difference for me. Now, for players in box, guys, I like to have this on about 5 with this formation. Now, the reason for this is I usually have this on about 6 or 7 for my other formations, but with the 4-4-2, I don't like my players overcommitting into the box, because let's say we have this very high, like the centre mids will start running into the box as well as the left mid and right mid, and it leaves us very exposed when we are hit on the counter attack. So I have this on about 5 so we don't overcommit into the box, and it's only really the strikers and maybe the right mid and left mid that do go into the box, you know. So it does help, you know, not to get counter attacked as much. So if you want to up this or lower it, that's up to you, but I suggest having it on about 5. For corners and free kicks, 6. I have this on 2. It's down to preference, but I like being able to cross the ball into the box, knowing I have options in the box, but I also don't like to overcommit to the point where I will get counter-attacked. So if you want to lower this or up this, that's completely fine. I just suggest 2 as a good middle ground. Now for the players you want to use in this formation, guys, you do have quite a lot of freedom in the striker positions because it is a 2-striker formation. When it is a 1-striker formation, you are a bit more restricted because you need a more well-rounded player in that position. But with a 2-striker formation, you can pretty much use whoever you want. I'm just currently using Keane and Leao because Leao's like a bigger, more of a runner striker, if that makes sense, and Keane's a bit more of an all-rounded striker that can do a bit of everything. So I like having that balance in the striker positions. But let's say you want to go for 2 smaller explosive players or even 2 lengthy players, that's completely up to you. Basically, just go for whatever you want in the striker position as long as you're comfortable with it. Now for the right mid and left mid, again, you can pretty much use whoever you want, but you do want these players to be as technical as possible. So I'm using Foden and Chiesa. The reason for this is because they are agile players. They've got good dribbling, they can cross the ball, they can shoot. So you want them to be able to do a bit of everything. You don't need to worry too much about the defensive stats of these players because, you know, they're mainly just here as an extra layer of defensive support. But what I will say is if you can get a player with a high work rate in the left mid or right mid position, it does work really well for transitions. I'll show you why this works in the player instructions as well, but it is very effective if you can get a high work rated player in these positions. But it's not like a requirement that you have to have, if that makes sense. So just go for players you're comfortable with in these positions. If they have a high work rate, that is obviously an added benefit. Now for your left centre mid, I suggest a more defensive stay back centre mid. So I'm using Patrick Vieira because he has very good defensive stats. It's very important you at least have one centre mid with these really good defensive stats because it's crucial to having a defensively stable team. So one really good defensive centre mid and the other one can be a more box to box player. So I'm using Park Ji-sung. He has very well rounded stats. They're pretty much all above 80. He's got a high work rate, which is very important in this position because they are going to be attacking and defending. So the high work rate means when we do attack, he will contribute to the attack quite a lot because of the high work rate, and when we lose the ball, he'll transition back very quickly again because of the high defensive work rate. So medium high for the left centre mid if possible, and high for the right centre mid if possible. Medium is also okay, but medium high is like preferable in the left centre mid position. Now for your left back and right back, you can pretty much use whoever you want to. If you want to use more attacking fullbacks, that's completely fine. If you want to use more defensive fullbacks, that's also fine. If you want to go for a bit of both, which is what I do, again, that also works. So what I've done is my left back is a more attacking fullback that's good on the ball, and my right back is a more defensive fullback that doesn't attack as much. You know, it's just to have that balance in the fullback position. So if I do need extra attacking support, I can just send the left back forward, and then we've also got a super defensive right back to cover, you know. So it does work really well, but it's up to you guys what you use. Okay guys, for player instructions on your strikers, I suggest the one that is faster, one that is better at making runs, to be on stay central and get in behind. This is because we want to utilize the runs of this player more so than the other striker. So it does work very well with those quicker players, the more powerful players and the lengthy players or whatever. It's nice to have that in the striker position. And then the other striker, if it's like a more well-rounded player, so I've got Robbie Keane, I suggest just stay central because we want them to have a bit more of a mixed attack. This is so we don't have such a disconnection between the midfield and the strikers, if this makes sense, because if we have them both on stay central and getting behind, you're going to have like these two strikers that are constantly running off, and then you've got the rest of your team that's not really connected to them, if that makes sense. So having one of them on mixed attack actually adds like an extra layer to this team, so it can almost be like a 4-4-1-1 at times to add an extra transition from midfield to attack. So it does work really well. But if you do want to have them both on getting behind, that's okay, and if you want them to be on both mixed attack, that's also okay, but I like to have one on each, if that makes sense. Stay central just means they don't drift off to the wings because we don't need them to. We've already got a left mid and right mid for that, so we need them to stay central to be in the striker positions. Now for your left centre mid, the one that is more defensive, I suggest stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box for cross and cover centre. The reason for this is we don't want him to attack because he's a more defensive player, so we have him on stay back. We want him to stay on the edge of the box box for cross, because when we are attacking, like I said, you don't want your team to overcommit. So because this is a more defensive player, in the rare case that he ends up attacking, even though he's on stay back while attacking, he will not run into the box. He will always be outside the box in order to break up the play if we do lose the ball. So it does work really well. And we have him on cover center because we need him to cover those central areas. We don't need him to cover the wing, as we've already got players to do that. Now for the right center mid, we have him on balanced instructions and then just cover center, because we need him to do a bit of everything. Like I said, he is a box-to-box player with a high work rate, so he's going to attack, he's going to defend, and we do sometimes want him to get into the box for the cross, and obviously we still want him to cover those central areas, because again, we do not need him to go to the wings. Now for your right mid and left mid, I suggest come back on defense and get into the box for cross. The reason for this is come back on defense is not a park the bus tactic, it just means your team will have a better shape when you are defending. If we put these players on, let's say, basic defensive support, sometimes they will not fill in their defensive roles and they do not make this formation work well defensively. So by putting them on comeback on defense, it always means you will defend in a structured 4-4-2 formation instead of just having gaps left down the right hand side and left hand side, meaning it's more like a 4-2-4, if that makes sense. So comeback on defense just makes it like a better structure for your team. Get into the box for cross just means they will transition into the box when you are attacking. It doesn't mean you have to cross the ball, it just means they will be there for the option if you do need it. So you can pass them the ball, you don't have to cross it, it just means they make better movements. Now one thing I wanted to say about comeback on defense is the reason the high work rate works very well is because, like I said, when we do lose the ball, they're going to be extra quick to utilize this instruction and they will run back much quicker than somebody with a lower work rate would. So that's why I suggested it, but like I said, it's not necessary if you can't get that. Now for both fullbacks, I suggest stay back while attacking and overlap. Now I know I said I have one more attacking fullback, but by default I still want them to both be on stay back while attacking. We also have them on overlap because when they do attack, we want them to overlap the wingers. We don't really want them to underlap them as such, because we want to add extra width. You know, if they start underlapping, they don't really add much to the team, so you want them to overlap to stretch the opponent as wide as possible. But if I do want to attack, like I said, my left back is more of an offensive player than my right back, so this is the player that I would trigger runs with, if that makes sense, more than Kyle Walker. But we have them both on stay back while attacking just for added defensive support. But yeah, they are my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-4-2. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.